talking about refugees, our next speaker's family were refugees from Vietnam, moved to Texas. He grew up eating Tex-Mex and loving country music. Then he spent almost a decade at strategy consultants like Bain and Monitor. Then he ran marketing at Everlane, which I have quite a few marketing Everlane products. This is not one of them. And now he's the founder and CEO of Reflect, a mental health platform that makes finding the right therapist easier with data-driven matching. Thank you for joining us, Jonathan.
Thanks for having me, Alex.
So, why don't you tell us a bit about what your vision was when you started Reflex?
Yeah, so I mean, I honestly, first before I start, I want to say thank you for having me. As another American, along with Brian, I've been blown away with the energy of the TechTO community. So thanks for letting me crash. And greetings from the Bay Area. I'll honestly say, like, mental health was probably the last place I ever thought I would be. Given my background, growing up, my family never talked about mental health or therapy at all. And so it really was my own personal experience of frustrations looking for a therapist. I've probably always been stressed. Thank you, Tiger Mom. But my 6-month search for a therapist added more stress to my life. And I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to look for. And I felt really alone. And so it was really that personal experience that made me realize there has to be an easier way. In the US, and I'm sure it's similar in Canada, 1 in 4 people have a diagnosable mental health issue, but 80% of people never get the right care. And so our vision was really how to make mental health more accessible, so that when you're looking for care, that process is super easy and seamless, so that the process of finding a therapist doesn't make you more stressed.
So let's take a step back, because I think you said something interesting. You said with giving family context, also imagine being a consultant. You never thought you'd be stressed or you need therapy. So how did you come to realize that? Because, and was it accepted when you started? How did you tell people that you needed help, and how did you go about realize that?
Yeah, it's really actually interesting. I think it was very much like my own process of coming out as a gay person. Was like, you have to sort of realize it yourself first. And then you're like so scared of telling anybody, because if they find out, you might be fired or what might happen. But now looking back, I'm like, the signs were clear. When I was in consulting, I wasn't sleeping. I was super anxious. And I think sort of as people, whether you're a founder or a consultant, it's really easy to sort of normalize your own experience. It's like, oh, it's normal to not sleep at night. It's normal to work 18 hours a day. That's like common. And a lot of founders, I think we're all guilty of that as well. And so I think that the lessons really, I think it's even harder in the founder world for me, and I've seen it. I sometimes joke that my mental health startup is going to give me a mental health breakdown. So I'm trying to live my own lessons. But really, I think what I found was actually probably like coming out, saying to myself and saying to my friends that, I was stressed or I have anxiety. I found nothing but support from people around me. And I think one of the best gifts of Reflect is that I've been able to connect with my friends who've kind of come out to me and said, gosh, I've been really stressed too, or I took leave from my job because of mental health issues. And so it's way more common than we think. And I think just being able to say it out loud and being able to sort of get the affirmation that you're not alone is such a powerful and important thing.
So you went through the process of realizing you were stressed, you needed therapy, looking for therapists, having a hard time finding one, and you decided to start a company. So how did you go about launching this? What's been the biggest obstacle, and what's been the biggest surprise on getting it launched?
So in the beginning, I didn't know a lot about the therapy space at all. And so I just wanted to learn about it. I knew from my own experience it was frustrating, but I had no idea how other people felt. And so I went the old consulting route, and I did 200 interviews. I did coffee chats with anyone who would talk to me. I did a big quant survey just to learn about the industry. And I think what was really surprising, and my thesis has changed a little bit, was in the beginning I thought there are great clients that need therapy and they're great therapists. And if we could just be a better matchmaker, then it's done. And I think as you realize when you do anything, you realize the problem is much deeper and greater than that. And so, the initial thesis was, hey, let's just go out and see, can we help someone find a therapist? And we started in the Bay Area. and we really built up the network of supply, and really we've grown to be the largest therapy network in California, which has been really amazing. And so it was about, can we get someone who's looking for therapy into care? And we've been really surprised that now 30,000 therapy sessions later, and 80% of those who try Reflect find a therapist they like.
Interesting.
Um,
That's
yeah.
impressive. And I imagine, when I think of the Bay Area and the Valley, I think of all these companies talking about word of mouth, hacking growth. Therapy is not, like you said, therapy is not something that people come out and say, I need help. And I imagine word of mouth is not how you grow. So how have you grown? How have you built awareness? How have you gotten to this size?
Yeah, it's actually really surprising. So when I first started Reflect and I said I'm leaving Everlane and I'm thinking about this, people thought I was crazy. They're like, this is such a, retail is so sexy, mental health is so not sexy. But I really believe that mental health is the crisis of our generation. And I think it affects how you see yourself, how you see your friends, and I think clearly right now how you see the world. And I think what's been really surprising to me, honestly, has been, word of mouth actually has been a great channel for us, purely because I think people are, we do online, we do all the paid stuff, but half of our inbound to this day has always been organic. And I think that's because sort of, as you talk to people, they're like, my friend is suffering and I just don't know where to refer them. I don't know what to do. And I think having to think of a therapist that's right for this person and go through that whole process is really intimidating for anybody, but people want to be helpful. So I think providing Reflect as a resource to say, hey, refer this one place, this one platform, and we can use our algorithm and all of our technology to help that person find the right care. I think that's been really, I was very surprised about that as a channel that's been very effective for us.
Interesting. And, can't not talk about the current world and the current situation. We have a pandemic. We have, Black Lives Matter, the states, and globally trying to understand what's going on with racism. So I imagine it's a very stressful time for many people. How can we go about, in the startup community, or just generally as leaders, help our employees and team members deal with the stress out there right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, I love that you're asking this question, because I think just asking that question means that you're trying to create a culture of caring. And so for me, I say, the first thing is give yourself and your teams a little bit of grace. We are in unprecedented times, and I think all of us, our work and our lives and our families are all blurred together. And I think that, just being a little bit, giving yourself a little bit of ease and understanding that, if deadlines slip a little bit and things happen, we're all just doing the best that we can. And tell your teams that. And I think I tell my teams that as well. And I try to model that. So for me, grace is one thing that I recommend. The second is, I would say, give yourself some space too. I love the technology as much as the next founder, but sometimes I got to unplug and just read a book or take a nap. And I think just creating space for yourself and for your teams. So not every call has to be video, and we don't have to always get online to do everything. I think that's been helpful. And I think the final thing is, which I think is probably the biggest thing, is if you, just like coming out, if you can say, hey, I'm going to see my therapist at 3:00, which I tell my team all the time. They know, I feel like this in my business, it's a little easier, but saying that out loud to your team and recognizing that mental health is important. And as a leader, you're going to unplug and you're going to seek care when you need it, and you're going to self-care. That's, I think, the best way to create a culture where your teams feel supported to actually raise it themselves and have those conversations.
So, Jonathan, I think those are incredible tips, and I'm going to try to implement it everywhere I work. And I really appreciate you coming on and joining us. And I hope you're successful in making people understand the impact of stress and actually talking about mental health a bit more. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, guys.